Scheme, functional programming language. Scheme can be introduced as a semi-functional programming language and a dialect of Lisp language. It is regarded as one of the most elegant programming languages in the world because of its smallness, beauty, and expressive power. When we talk about the history of Scheme, it saw the light of the world back in 1975 in the AI laboratory at MIT when Guy L. Steele and Gerald J. Sussman wanted to create a language that would own a clear and simple semantics. They had realized that languages should not be developed by adding a lot of features, but by removing weaknesses and limitations that make additional features seem necessary. Still, Scheme is very expressive and supports several different programming paradigms. Scheme was influenced by lambda calculus, which is one of the first functional programming languages in the world, Algol, from which Scheme inherited statistical scope, and Lisp, from which Scheme inherited the syntax. Scheme started as an attempt to understand Carl Hewitt's actor model. It was originally called Schemer in the tradition of other Lisp-derived languages like Planner. The development of Scheme has been very slow, since the people who standardize Scheme are very conservative regarding adding new features. Quality has always been more important than industrial usability, and this has led to the fact that Scheme is a very well-designed general-purpose programming language which does not contain a lot of clauses that would make the language clumsy.
When we consider Scheme as a language, it is a statical scoped and weakly typed programming language which is very well suited for transformation in programming. In general, that is writing programs that write programs, or for writing programs that can easily be extended or customized. Scripting. The construction of new languages and application-specific programming environments and so on. For developing and implementing programming languages, among other things, most of the Scheme implementations are interactive, that is, interpreters, but there are also compilers available. Scheme is a descendant of Lisp. It shares most of its syntax with Lisp, but it provides statical rather than dynamic scope rules. Lisp and Scheme have found their main application in the field of artificial intelligence.
Scheme is an imperative language with a functional core. The functional core is based on the lambda calculus. In functional programming, parameters play the same role that assignment do in imperative programming. If you want to get something of the favor of functional programming, you can do that in Scheme most well. Written Scheme programs are largely functional because that's simply the easiest way to do many interesting things. The procedures in Schemes are first-class procedures, which means that they can be given as argument to other procedures, they can be returned as the value of procedure, they can be bound to variables or fields of other objects, and so on. The arguments of Scheme procedures are passed by value. Syntactically, Scheme is very simple. The syntax consists of parentheses and prefix notation, which means that the operator comes first and then the operand.
As for an example, Scheme has a prefix notation, where the operator goes before the operands, not between them. Formally, we write the operator and its operand inside parentheses, with one or more spaces separating them from each other. Also, parentheses are only used to denote function application, not for grouping. To sum up, computing in Scheme is very similar to doing grade school arithmetic.
Now we will look why Scheme is good as an introductory language. Scheme is a wonderful choice as an introductory language. Its clear syntax makes it possible to concentrate on the programming problems at hand instead of wasting a lot of time on teaching the syntax. It is also possible to teach several different programming paradigms. For examples, functional, imperative, and object-oriented. Scheme is also a very small language and is therefore easy to learn. Here are some major implementations of Scheme. Scheme 48, Big Clue, Chess Scheme are some of them.
Scheme in practice. Scheme is widely used in the academic world as an introductory language. The language is, however, spreading into the industrial world too. Examples of the use of Scheme are Guile, which is an extension language developed by Free Software Foundation, the Scheme Shell, which is the scripting language, and CAD Framework Initiative, which partly use Scheme. Scheme has also influenced other programming languages such as Common Lisp and Dylan, Ruby.
Scheme is not a new language. It's been around and evolving slowly for 20 years. For that, there were two consequences. The first is that Scheme is a beautiful, extremely well-designed language. The second is that Scheme has been behind curve, lacking several features that are useful in general-purpose languages. Gradually, though, Scheme has grown from a very small language suitable only for teaching concepts to a very useful language. According to viewpoints of programmers, the most important new feature of Scheme is lexically scoped markers, which allow the implementation of many language features in a portable and fairly efficient way. This allows Scheme to remain small but also allows useful extensions to the base language to be written as libraries without a significant performance penalty. This is end of the Scheme demonstration. Thank you for listening. Hope you have learned something new.